Everyone has some sort of a closet that's become too small. A closet is no place to live, and I want to support as many people as I can in stepping out of that prison into the fullness of life that's waiting for them on the other side of that closet door. I'm Nancy Shadlock from Centered Life Coaching. Join me in listening to these coming out chronicles. Get curious about your story, and then see what good things are waiting for you on the other side of your closet door.
Welcome back. I'm so happy to have you here today. And I have really exciting news. We've been nominated for the Women in Podcasting Award, and voting is now open until October 1st. So I would love it if you would go and vote for us. We're in the LGBT category, and I'll put the link in the show notes for you to vote for us as Best LGBT Podcast. Yeah, I'm so excited for that honor. And also, today's guest is so exciting to hear her story of both her coming out about her sexuality story, but then she goes into her coming out in business story, because I think that's an aspect that we don't often hear about. We have different layers of coming out, as I talk about on here. There's always a new something that we're having to come out about as we grow. And so as an entrepreneur and even just at work, like that's a question of how do I come out there? And so it'll be awesome to hear Kailey's story and know how it went for her, and also get some tips for how you can be supported in your coming out journey. And that is a question that I've had recently is, do you support people in career and coming out around that? And I have run in the past a program called Work That Fits, and I think it's almost time to run it again. And so I would love for you to think about that. If you are in a point in your life where you're wondering, how do I get into work that really is actually aligned with who I am and doesn't make me compromise my values, and I'm not respected, those kinds of things. Would love to support you in that journey. And so send me an email, nancy@centered.ca, and just mention the word Work That Fits, and I'd be happy to chat more with you about that and see if it would be a fit for you to join this group program, because it's a lot of fun. We do a lot of, personality profiles, chatting through different things to help people find or create work that truly fits who you are. And so I'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, enjoy this amazing episode. Hi, Kailey. It's great to have you on the show.
Hello. Thanks so much. Great to be here.
So I'm so excited to jump in and hear what coming out story do you want to share with us today, or maybe a few different coming out stories. So I'll let you kind of start wherever you want to start and take us on your journey.
Sure. Yeah, I came out when I was 19. I was 19 every time. Tegan and Sarah. Yeah, I came out in my first year of university. It was one of those classic, kind of always knew, had a crush on my dance teachers growing up and theater school teachers. It was very classic in that way. But I grew up in what was sort of a small town, fastest growing city in America for a few years. So it was like a big, it's now quite a large city, but
In America or Canada?
And I think the stat was North America. That's what I always referenced. But yeah, I know it just said America. I guess Canada. I don't know. I should probably Google this, because this is one of those things that people told me as a child, because I'd be like, where did the farm go, Pops? And he's like, well, we're the fastest. No, we weren't that. But no, it really was kind of like that. Like there was a farm one day and then a subdivision the next. It was like, wow, it was wild. However, I'd say that the politics of the place didn't grow quite as quickly as perhaps the infrastructure did. So in my high school, there were, everybody was cis, straight, mostly white. It was very, nobody really came out. There was one kid who came out in high school and then promptly left a semester later. So yeah, it was very that.
You said it was
we were
a
at the Catholic
Catholic?
high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that also, definitely, grew up, big crush on my outdoor ed teacher in grade 2 who was queer. I learned later, obviously. But yeah, I think it was always, it was a thing that, it was a classic, like having to come out story, because it was something in my household that was not either openly talked about or talked about like in a negative light. Yeah, I had my first girlfriend in first year university. It was wonderful and lovely and amazing, in our own little Guelph University bubble, because Guelph was very queer forward and university was, and I was in the theater program. And so, that all, right? Yeah, it all fits. But yeah, that was sort of, I guess, my first part of coming out. And I minorly came out to my mom before she passed away, which is sort of interesting in the context of thinking about my business, which was a dedication to my mom's memory, and then tying in the sort of coming out in business part of it. So yeah, I had my first girlfriend, and then I kind of like had a boyfriend for, a little while. And it was when I had my boyfriend that I sort of half-assed came out to my mom in a car driving to get orange juice, I think, from the health food store. And I just sort of was like, hey, like my friend Vic from last year. And I was like, yeah, she stayed with us for 3 weeks in the summer. I was like, yeah, so
There's a reason.
well, we were lesbianing it. No, I just sort of like said, like, you knew, right? And she was kind of just driving and said, no, what? No. And we never talked about it again. Because again, at that time I had my boyfriend, and then she, pretty soon after that, I guess the next January, she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, like pretty rapidly. Like she like had a cold over Christmas and was coughing a lot. And then it was a very fast descent of a human. Like she was gone in 5 or 6 weeks from diagnosis. So, and I remember the nurses saying, like, if there's anything you really want to tell your mom, like, now's the time. And I remember thinking, do I want to go into this? I wasn't sure. And so I didn't. And so I don't know if she thought maybe it was like a phase or a fad, or I don't know. I like to think that she would be supportive, of course, but I don't know. I'm not sure. And so that's sort of a thing that when I started my business, so I started a vegan sauce company with her recipes, because she was like this little hippie vegan back in the 70s making cashew Alfredo, which was so weird back then, right? Like people were not doing cashew cheese back then, but my mother was definitely a leader. So I started my business she died in 2011. I started my business in 2013. And I started it like, quite out, I guess. But I didn't really have that like queer business family. I joined like the women's business incubator club things. I joined like the foodie founders stuff, but I wasn't really like I was out in my business, but I wasn't really out in community. Like it wasn't really a part of my business that I guess actively promoted. And so when I found CGLCC, Canada's Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, or LGBTQI+ Chamber of Commerce, as they now go by, it was like a second coming out, I guess. Like it was like a real coming out in business, like really going public with it and figuring out how I don't know how that aspect of me fit into business, because I really had not seen that fit make sense, I guess, until I met the CGLCC folks and got into the youth mentorship program. That was a huge, huge turning point for me. Just seeing, a successful lesbian woman who had her own business for 30 years and just getting that one-on-one mentorship experience with her. I think all of that combined to sort of, I don't know, to tie it back to my mom, because my business was for my mom, and then I was getting all this acceptance for being queer and out in my business from CGLCC and my mentor. And I think, yeah, it was really healing in that way. So I think that was a very long long-winded answer to your question.
We'll go into more details in both, in kind of all categories, but did you have a dad growing up? What was the rest of your family like in terms of acceptance of you?
Yeah, my dad was surprisingly good with everything. And it was surprising because my dad is 10 years older than my mom. And he definitely was, homophobic, especially towards gay men growing up. Like if he ever saw anything, it was like, ugh. So my sort of perception was that this was going to go very badly. And I did it very casually with like a casual person I was dating. I was like, hey, yeah, so my girlfriend's coming. And like, I just dropped it so casually, and he like barely reacted. And then I had to like, test the waters again with like a more serious partner. I was like, okay, so like, did you catch that? Like, but now with my fiance, he's obsessed with it. He's like, my other daughter, I love her. Like, he's like literally obsessed with M, which is so sweet and lovely. And, we never really had like the talk about the gay thing. It was just sort of like, I just was like, hey, this is what's up, and you're going to be on board. And he was. And so I came out to him much later. I think it was actually around the time that I started being more out of my business, because I think he got Facebook around that time. He's one of those, boomers who joined Facebook late. And I was like, well, you're going to see some like rainbow mac and cheese at Toronto Pride posts soon. So let's, get this out there. So yeah, he was surprisingly good.
That's something that I often say to clients is like, how you show up often dictates how you're going to be treated. And so if you can come out with that posture of like, here's who I am, I want you to know more about me, then they're like, okay, thanks for sharing that, rather than like, there's this thing about me that you should know. And it's like,
yeah, totally. I think that like sometimes that works. And in my case, it did. It was, I think, I don't know how he would have been if I had made a whole thing about it, but I just was like not prepared to do that, I guess. So yeah, it worked. My Italian family though, definitely outwardly homophobic. So it's been hard with them, because after my mom passed, like we didn't have we haven't had contact with her brother, my uncle, in like 20 years. Like he came as she was dying. It was a very dramatic hallmark moment, and then we never heard from him again. So but my aunt I was really close with, and she's very much like looks like my mom. Like she was so great. Right after my mom died, I spent a ton of time at her place. She'd make me pasta and make me like just very comforting. But that whole side of the family is strict Roman Catholic, like outwardly homophobic. So, my cousin and my aunt I'm open with, and that sort of same like, hey, I just talk about this, but it's a very, I don't know if don't ask, don't tell is the right way to put this, but it's my male cousins are not accepting of my uncle, and so I just kind of don't go there anymore, which is sad. So it did put a wedge in that relationship. I don't feel safe there. So that's unfortunate.
That's one of my sadnesses, is that it feels like the more religious people are, the less loving and inclusive and things.
Yeah, it's strange, too bad.
Oxymoron. It's supposed to be all about love.
Definitely. Yeah, exactly. Jesus would have probably loved the gays, But anyway, I kind of also haven't like tried that hard to try sort of like change their minds or anything. It's just felt like a lot of energy that I don't have.
Yeah, it's hard to change anyone's mind about anything.
Yeah,
sometimes they do when there's someone in their life that they want relationship with, and that will challenge people to work on that relationship. But it's if they're not doing it, it's like you can't force that, which is hard.
Yeah. I've tried with other things. I've tried with other like hot button topics, if you will, to fight them on it, and it doesn't get anywhere. So I'm like, I don't see why this would be any different. They're very rigid. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that aspect with us and helping us get to know you. And, I think your challenge is not unique. Like there's so many people that have had that upbringing but it's nice to hear other people and how people are dealing with it and that it sounds like you're thriving even so. And I want to hear, do you want to share anything about engagement you just mentioned?
Okay. Yeah, so it's my partner and I actually met in high school in that same fastest growing city in America place in kilts in the closet, very she was like a popular girl and I was a bit of a theater nerd, just I don't know. So we weren't enemies by any means, but we weren't buddies. Probably had some parties and some overlap, but we were partners. Our school did their first hospitality class, so they like installed this commercial kitchen and they were teaching people to cook, which was wild because it was a small high school. But anyway, we both joined it, and so we were partners in hospitality. So Em's often like, all my early cooking memories are with you. Like I remember learning to make lasagnas with you. And Em has an amazing memory. My memory of high school is like, I don't remember any of high school. It was like not a very meaningful time for me. It just didn't stick, did not imprint. But she has all these amazing memories of us being like partners in hospitality and phone calls about like, what are we going to do for our project on Japanese food? Like, just like she has all these cute memories of us together. And we actually have a photo. I should have brought it. Anyway, it's very cute. It's us in hospitality class, like I guess we met when we were 13 in grade 9, but I think this was grade 11. So I don't know, 15, 16, however old you are, but we're like holding whisks and have our little aprons on. It's in our kitchen right now, which is so cute. But yeah, then we didn't talk for 15 years. And it's funny, it was actually a CGLCC post that made reach out. So I had posted like, thanks CGLCC, with like a little kombucha glass, being like, thanks for the award for like LGBT Exporter of the Year. And commented on it and was like, marry me already. And I had a social media manager right. I know. I guess she had been sort of like watching my journey on Instagram, like through having my business for a decade. So they'd been like observing that, and they reached out, and my social media manager, Fally, at the time was like, I think there's something in the inbox that's for you, and it's not, I don't know how to respond to it. You might want to go look. And because I was trying to be very offhands with my social media, it was the whole thing. Anyway, so I go in and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm from Barrie, what? And so I was like, taking this to my personal Instagram, see you there. And I was like, hey, did you end up being a big gay too? And they were like, yeah. And then we sort of just did a quick catch up and didn't really. Anyway, when we eventually reconnected, it was about a year after that initial outreach. It turns out we were just living 10 minutes away from one another in Toronto. Like I was up at Casaloma and they were like St. George, like one subway station away. Wow. Like it was wild. So yeah, we started dating, and then last summer we moved here to Vancouver. I was finding some partners for the business, and they were out here, and Em works remotely, and we spent a bit of time out here exploring that relationship with the new business partners, and we both were like, ocean, mountains, this is beautiful, let's just move here. So we did, and then last month, or wait, what month are we in? Anyway, June of this summer, we had our queer choir concert, and I proposed to Em live on stage. It was all very
theater queen.
Lovely. Yeah. People were like, that checks out. But it was live streamed to all like it was live streamed, and so people in Ontario could watch it. Like our families were watching. It was
that's special. Good thing they didn't say no.
I know, right? Well, like they knew it was coming. We had talked a lot about it. So, they knew it was coming at some point this year, but I don't think, she didn't think it was happening that fast or that early in the year.
And I love that you live in my old hood in East Van. So I'm going to totally connect you with all my friends there to hang out with.
Thank you. Yeah, we love it here. I feel like it's so funny. We didn't realize that we were kind of moving into like a bit of a queer neighborhood here, because you don't know when you don't know a city, right? But everybody who's like, where are you two living? We're like, East Van. They're like, oh yeah, that checks out. That's where all the queer Really? Oh yeah, we've totally noticed that.
That's what I joke about, that I left Commercial Drive, the lesbian capital of Canada, moved to conservative Calgary, and then came out.
Oh my gosh, really? That's interesting. So
Yeah.
you weren't out when you were here.
No, I wasn't. No. So it's yeah, it was a different
Oh.
role. I was like, a member of my church on the board, offering spiritual direction to people, and so it felt too public and like hard to
Hmm.
like look at my own stuff, and I feared that I would lose my whole community. And so when I moved here, I built a tiny house and I moved to Calgary and lived in my tiny house and felt kind of like insulated, and that it was like
Yeah.
protected enough to look at all my things and then come out. And thankfully, I didn't lose my whole world. And there's been so many people that have stayed with me from my past. And now it's like, okay, now I
Oh.
actually can help people who have lived that journey of being quite religiously raised and feeling like you have to like divorce your spirituality or your sexuality, but actually we can integrate all
Hmm.
of that because we're all of those things. So I love that now.
Yeah. Love that. Wow, cool.
Stay tuned for more in this episode. We'll hear all about how Kailey came out in her business in more dramatic ways thanks to the mentorship she got from CGLCC's Out for Business mentorship program. But first, a note from our sponsors. I bet you can't guess who it is. So think about, would you like to be a mentor in this program?
My name is Idara, and I manage Out for Business, Canada's only national mentorship program for 2S entrepreneurs. Out for Business is a program that is offered by CGLCC, that is Canada's 2S Chamber of Commerce. Since 2017, Out for Business has supported a group of queer entrepreneurs each year by connecting business leaders in our community with the next generation of leaders to provide support and guidance in growing their businesses. This is done through one-on-one and group mentoring sessions that allow for participants to expand their knowledge and networks and to create a mutually beneficial space for sharing expertise and experience. This is an exciting year for Out for Business as the program has undergone a relaunch or a revamp, however you want to call it. This year, we will focus on accessibility, intersectionality, and the creation of a mentoring community. Currently, we are looking for volunteer mentors. As a mentor, you can be from any background. You could be an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, an employee, a retiree, anything. If you have knowledge and experience you want to share with our community of queer entrepreneurs, we want to hear from you. As a mentor, you'll have the opportunity to guide entrepreneurs to success, committing just 3 hours a month for the duration of 10 months. Not only will you be making a meaningful impact, but you'll also boost your leadership and coaching skills. You'll also connect with a vibrant community of innovators and be a part of a dynamic network of mentors and mentees. Together, we are working to create a more inclusive business landscape. By sharing your expertise and experience, you can help empower queer entrepreneurs to thrive. Join us today and be a part of this exciting program. If you're interested in becoming a mentor, please visit cglcc.ca and select Out for Business from the program drop-down menu.
So back to your, like you said, you had your business, you started it in 2013, and did it just kind of like bumble along a bit until you got this incubator? It's like, sounds like such a cool idea, and like, tell us all about it.
Sure, yeah. Bumbling along, definitely the first couple of years. Oh my gosh. Like I was a theater kid. I'm like, what business do I have starting a food company, a food CPG, like consumer packaged goods company? But yeah, no, I mean, I definitely received a lot of good early support. Actually, some of the first like cold calls I made, because I feel like there wasn't as much on Google at the time for like starting a business in Canada in the food space. Like there was like, I was like, I don't know where to start, right? So I would just like call people from basically, so there was a soup company, a Hall's Kitchen, and they had their phone number on the jar. And I was working at a health food store, and my boss was super supportive, and he's like, give Kit a call. And I was like, all right. So I called her. Kit and Kat, queer couple. They had the soup company, and I was like, they were fantastic. So they kind of walked me through some things, but yeah, I was kind of bumbling along, rollerblading around Toronto with a backpack of sauce and like just like carrying like 25 pounds of cashews on either shoulder, like going through the subway. I remember being like, this is really heavy and also very funny. Like I feel, yeah, it was a moment, and yeah, it was fine. You know, things were going quite well. Like nobody was doing vegan Alfredo or vegan cheese sauce, vegan carbonara. Like nobody was really doing that at that point. And there were very few vegan cheeses. There was Dea, of course, but nobody was really doing cashew cheeses at that scale yet either. So it was unique. And so I got a lot of early acceptance into stores, but then the scaling part, and yeah, it was difficult. It was difficult. The manufacturing, a lot of it was lots of roadblocks. And yeah, like I said, I did find some good community with like women entrepreneurs and foodie entrepreneurs. But it was 5 years into the journey when I was at, I forget, maybe like a Startup Canada event or some business event. And there was this little like printed slip of paper that was like LGBT entrepreneurs wanted for mentorship program. And I was like, interesting. And so I remember that sat on like my table for a while. And I think I applied in 2018, and I made it to the top whatever, and then I bailed. I was like, I'm not ready for this yet. Like I remember that phone call. They were like, you realize like you were selected to kind of move, and I was like, I know, thanks, sorry, I too many things right now. I just don't have the capacity to fully give myself to this. Thinking back on that, probably also the capacity to fully be like super gay in business, right? Like, right. I don't know, but so then the next year came,
because that's like,
yeah, I know. It's funny. This is the first time I'm kind of putting it together, because I remember bailing on it the first year, and I remember on the phone they were almost like they were a little offended, and I remember thinking like, oh shit, like this is, oops, like I guess I shouldn't have applied if I wasn't ready. And you know, my whole thing with business, like I did the Futurepreneur mentorship program, which was great. My mentor, I got a woman mentor, which was lovely. She's great, very helpful in a lot of ways, not queer, and not an entrepreneur. So there were a couple, you know, gaps, I guess, in our understanding, I guess I'd say. But I always said, like, you get out what you give in. And I think at the time it was probably a combination of like, I just don't have the capacity to fully give myself. But I'm trying to think, that would have been 2018, probably 2017, 2018. And I didn't have like queer owned in my Instagram profile, for example, for the company at that point. I guess maybe I wasn't fully out to my dad. It was, and my Italian family, I think at that time too. I wasn't like fully sort of just saying, yeah, me and my girlfriend, whatever. So I think it was like a stepping into, it was interesting because the first info session I went to on that program, I remember getting into the elevator after that info session with my partner at the time. And I said to them, I was like, have a weird, sneaky feeling that this organization is going to change my life. And it was a very dramatic thing to say. I mean, I'm a theater kid, but still, they were like, cool, yeah, I'll probably apply to, like, they had a business and it was like not as like big for them, I guess. But I was like, no, this is something big. So I think I knew it was something big. I didn't know in what way, but I knew I wasn't ready for it the first year. I think there were a lot of times in business where, you know, we'd be in pricing discussion, for example, with like a buyer, and he, almost always cis, straight, older, white man, would say like, hope you have a wealthy husband back home because this business, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I was always a little taken aback. I'm like, why do I have to be discussing my sexuality in this business conversation? But there were these offhand comments of, you know, just assumptions, just that heteronormative assumption, you know, that I was straight, I'm straight passing-ish, you know, my hair is below my neck, my chin, so people are like, oh, maybe she's straight, I don't know. But it was always this awkward, like, thing I kind of had to dodge. So I definitely did have some fear that, you know, I mean, there are homophobic people in business, and like, you know, it's sometimes in Canada at least, or in Toronto, I'll say, less. It's a little bit behind closed doors, which is the part that scared me, because I was like, what business opportunities might I lose from being this out? You know, maybe people won't want to do business with me. I don't know. And to be honest, to this day, I don't know necessarily if I have lost business because of it. Definitely raising money, like investment, when I tried to get investors, it was really, really difficult. And I think, you know, the stats for women raising capital are tragic. I think in Canada, it's less than 3% of venture cap goes to women, and then probably an even smaller fraction to queer folks or out queer women. So yeah, there are things I still don't know what I may have lost, but it got to a point the next year when I applied again, I was like, no, I had this organization is going to change my life feeling. And I was like, it's going to be worth it. And it definitely has been.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's, you know, that also was a universal feeling of just like, how should I be in my public life and at work and at, you know, in my business. And so, yeah, it's a challenge that I think a lot of people have to go through, and you have to be ready. Like, you can't go until you're ready. And it's awesome that you kind of had that forethought of like, I think this is going to change my life, but wait until you're ready to let it change your life. And then it sounds like you jumped in the next year.
Oh yeah. The next year I was like all in, just everything that the CGLCC put out. I was like the first to want to do it. So I met Patty, my amazing mentor, who's still a really close friend, I'd say, 4 years later. I applied in 2018. We started the mentorship the start of 2019. It was just a game changer, because I didn't really have any like queer mentors or role models in real life, right? Like, I had, you know, queer friends and some colleagues, and there were, you know, other vegan lesbians starting food companies at that time. We had a little like crew of us, which was great, but it was so special to me to see Patty, who had her own business for like 30 years, just thriving and doing so well, and just talking about, you know, she was a very much, to our point earlier, like, she was very much like, this is who I am, kind of no bullshit, like no apologies, not really ever making like a big deal of it, just being like, yep, queer in business. But, you know, back in the 80s, like, definitely her and her partner at the time, who had the business together, like, definitely didn't always come out. And so hearing those stories too, and just appreciating that she was, and other queer folks, you know, in business at the time were paving that path for us. And I owe so much to her and in what she taught me in our mentorship, but also like what she did in her time for, you know, the collective us. It's so amazing. Yeah, getting to meet Patty was such a game changer.
Was she in the same industry as you, or different, and that was fine?
It was different industry. And I remember when I originally went to CGLCC, I was like, I want someone in finance, because I'm not good at the number thing, and I don't want to do cash flow forecasts, and I need help. And they were like, well, she's in corporate communications, or like, she was in comms and strategy and a bit of marketing and like printing and advertising. And I was kind of like, but then we had a call, and I was like, you're perfect for me. So it wasn't, you know, there's like, in the food business, you kind of have to wear a bajillion hats, and there is communications and strategy and like there are aspects of all of that, but it was more so, you know, I think mentorship works in different ways. Like, I had mentors like Kit and Kat, the soup ladies, who I called, like, they were in the industry. They had very industry specific, like, help on pricing models and manufacturing and contracts and stuff like that. And then, you know, I think industry agnostic sort of mentorship also works. I think it depends what you're looking for. And I think I didn't realize that what I was looking for was Patty. I don't know, you know, like, I didn't realize I was looking for that sort of queer role model, you know. And she had been very financially successful in her career. And so that was also really nice to see, like to see, you know, because I also had a bit of that theater kid, starving artist, like you scrappy queer business mentality. And she was very much like, no, you can make money. You can want to make money. Like, that's okay. So healed some of that money stuff as well, which was really, really helpful. But yeah, she wasn't in my industry, and it didn't matter. And if anything, you know, she was able to reflect back to me like, this industry you're in is really difficult. Like, because she was looking at it from her industry perspective. Because yeah, the food industry it's brutal. And, you know, just being in my little bubble, I'm like, oh yeah, we're all in it. We're all doing it. But she was able to give that outside perspective, which was actually really, really validating, I guess I'll say, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is wildly difficult to do without massive amounts of capital. And she was like, yes, it is. So, you know, I think in some ways a mentor who's not in your industry can definitely still provide a lot of value.
And so that got you thinking about raising capital and different things like that?
Yeah. I mean, I knew I had to, after 5 years in the industry, you learn about all of these. I could go on forever about this, but it's a very expensive industry, you know, and people don't talk about it. I don't know why. Not many. I think more people are coming forward with it now, but, you know, for example, to get on the shelf at certain stores, you have to pay $30,000 per SKU, per flavor, just to get on the shelf. It doesn't guarantee you anything. So that I had 5 sauces, like that's $150K just to get on the shelf. And then you have to go on promo 4 times a year, which is like 20% off. And then so you get all these like chargebacks, and so you're invoicing for $10K, you're getting $800 back. The thing cost you $5,000 to make. Like, it's the math doesn't math when you. I know it's wild, and so it's challenging for small businesses. In, I don't know, other CPG I think might be a bit different. I mean, mine it's a refrigerated product, so there's the added layer of like refrigerated and expiration dates and all of that. But yeah, it's definitely an industry where you need a lot of capital to make a splash and to make a lasting, like sustainable business. You need some good capital injections. So that's when I really started looking for funding. I received some funding, had some great folks come in to help, but I got to a point where I really wanted to find some partners in the business and take a bit of a step back and have people who knew more than me help carry the torch, I guess, to the next level of business. So I found some great partners here in Vancouver, and that's why my partner and I moved out here last summer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what was the structure of it? Like, did you meet regularly with Patty? Was there like a whole group thing with CGLCC mentorship program?
Yeah, it was a bit of both. And now this was 2019. So I know that they've revamped their program. So I don't know if it's exactly like this, but for us, it was kind of like, you know, we did sort of a goal, like a goal setting project plan sort of for what we wanted the relationship to be. Obviously it was mentee led, so I filled it out. She signed off on it, but we had decided that we were going to do once a week. I think we decided once a week phone calls and once a month in person. And that was just like the cadence that we decided together. I think it ended up being more like every other week in person because we really hit it off. And
you were both in Toronto anyways.
We were both in Toronto, exactly. I had my little sauce-mobile so I could drive up and see her. And yeah, and then there were some check-ins with the bigger group, which were awesome. We did some personality test things and just group activities. We would go to all the CGLCC events and all meet up, all the out for business mentees and mentors. And, you know, she introduced me to folks in her network. So there were, you know, we were texting a lot. Like it was a pretty, I don't know what the word is, fulsome, robust support. Yeah, it felt like very robust support. And I think that's different for, like, I've had 2, I guess, official mentors and like 4 other mentors throughout the course of the last decade of business. And, you know, they're all different. And I think they depend on that relational aspect, like and everybody's time and availability and capacity and what they're able to and wanting to put in and get out of the relationships. But for us, yeah, we met on that regular cadence for the first year, which was when I was in the program. And then after that, we kind of just kept it up. Like we kind of like, it's definitely, I live in Vancouver now, so, you know, we don't see one another as often, but that's often where I stay and go back to Toronto. And, you know, we're still texting all the time. And, you know, she's definitely like, I definitely call her a friend now, but still a mentor. And still, you know, if I have a business query, I don't know, issue, I can take it to her and talk it out with her. She's great. So yeah, we did that for the first year. And then I think you're supposed to, at least back then, you're supposed to do the full year and then you get your certification as a diverse supplier. And then you can like apply to the trade missions and all of that. But mine, I think we started in February. So I think I was supposed to get it the following year. But there was a trade mission to Tampa for the big NGLCC. So it's like the US version of CGLCC, the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. There was a big trade mission to Tampa in August. And I was like, I want to get certified before that, and then I want to go on that thing. And they were like, okay, eager beaver. So I did. I was like, yeah, I'm going to get certified. I'm going to go on the trade mission. And that was just another huge game changer. So I think, yeah, the mentorship program really like hooked me into the CGLCC community and introduced me to all of the programs. There are a lot of programs. And then I kind of was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. I turned into just like the biggest CGLCC nerd and wanted to do all of the things, which were all fantastic. So
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
you'd highly recommend someone else entering this Out for Business mentorship program?
100%. I think like, and you get the community of the other mentees and you get the community of CGLCC at large. You know, everybody learns about your business and wants to just help promote you. It's fantastic. And I think it was one of those don't know what I don't know sort of things. Like I didn't know how meaningful it would be until I had that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. Big.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with us today, both your own kind of coming out about your sexuality and then coming out in business, because I think that's a rare way that we don't often hear about how the coming out story impacts us. And I think you'll have inspired many other people in their work today. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I think it's an important conversation and I think, you know, do I have time to touch on one thing about supplier diversity?
Yeah.
Okay. Last note. I'm just such a huge, again, CGLCC nerd, but the thing that I really started to learn about through a little bit through my mentorship, but then definitely when I went on that trade mission to Tampa, I started to learn about supplier diversity and how a lot of corporations have either mandates or goals, targets set to work with more diverse suppliers. And so getting that certification allowed me to literally sit down at the table with massive companies who I would have only ever dreamed of being on their shelves, you know? And they were like, yeah, we want to work with you. We want to work with diverse certified suppliers. And I was like, what? Like, not only did I have sort of the support and comfort, I guess, of having like a queer mentor and having that role model, but then I realized I could actually use my diversity like to my advantage, like as a selling point in my business, which helped really eradicate all that earlier stuff of like, am I losing opportunities? I was like, oh my gosh, if I weren't certified diverse, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to, you know, Target, Kroger, Hilton, like these massive companies that I was just like, this is amazing. And, you know, so that's something that I think it was really, really big in the US because supplier diversity started there, like 60s, coming out of the civil rights movement, and it was government led, and it started here in Canada early 2000s. And so it's not as robust, but it's getting there. And that's really, you know, also why I'm passionate about my work at the CGLCC, because I work with corporates and I'm really excited to help pair suppliers and corporate partners. Corporates some of them are massive, like the ones I listed, but there are smaller corporates. Corporates can also mean academic institutions, municipalities, cities that want to procure from diverse folks. So that was like, that's just the other huge part of like what that into the CGLCC taught me. I had no idea. And so it was it was really cool to learn about, you know, it was no longer dodging that, like, well, you better have a rich husband at home. It was like, no, I'm leading with my diversity. Like, you didn't even have a chance to say that because I have like certified, I was going to say certified gay business, but certified LGBTE like logo right there on my sell sheets on my website. And so it was really helpful in that way as well. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that's helpful to understand. Because I've seen the diverse supplier certification and stuff, but it's hard to know exactly like what that means and what would that do. So that's worth it.
Yeah, definitely worth it. It's awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Anything else before I cut you off?
Well, you know, give me a microphone. No, I'm good.
Maybe end with a song for your theater.
I was 19.
Begin and end with it. That's perfect.
Bringing it back. Bookend with Tegan and Sarah. It's the way.
Now we can put them in the hashtags and get way more publicity for this episode.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Tegan and Sarah Foundation, if you're listening, CGLCC, Out for Business program. Great. Great stuff.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
Thanks for listening to the Coming Out Chronicles. If you enjoyed it, give it a like. And if you think it would be helpful for someone else, please share it with them. If you'd like to connect with me, reach out on social. I'd love to support you on the next chapter of your coming out story. Until next time, this is Nancy Shadlock from Centered Life Coaching.